So hello, Brian. Thank you so much for having a chat with me today and for so generously donating your book to the Lockdown Library. The Lockdown Library was just a really good excuse for me to bring together some clever people who've written books and give people in lockdown who may have a bit more time on their hands an opportunity to do some great learning and reading. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your generosity.
You're welcome, Becca. It's great to be here, and congratulations. It was a great initiative, I thought, providing the Lockdown Library, and you got some great people in the library that have donated their books. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's great. And now you're a great addition to the library. You're an expert for turning people into leaders when historically they've been technical experts. And this is something that's quite close to my heart as well. So I'm really excited to hear about the work that you do with the people that you work with. Tell us a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Beck. Well, the main thing I do is work as an executive coach. I also do facilitating with teams and speak, and yes, I'm an author as well. And the book I've written, Leadership is Changing the Game, that's in your fabulous Lockdown Library.
Yeah. So what motivated you to write the book?
Yeah, well, I guess over my whole career, Beck, I've worked with really great technical people. You know, like most of us, we start our career in some narrow technical specialty area. I'm sure a lot of your audience in quality management do the same.
Yeah.
You know, you start out in some particular area solving technical problems of some sort. And then at some point somebody says, well, you're actually really great at what you do. Why don't we make you a leader? And at that point, there's a transition that goes on. And I guess I noticed after working with a number of people over the years that sometimes there's a few speed bumps for people when they go through that transition.
Yeah. And
mostly it's around the transition from solving technical problems to now as a leader, your job is to get results through people. So they're typically people problems.
So what's the main message in your book, Leadership is Changing the Game?
It's really about how to build your influence as a leader, Beck. I think you've got to make that transition from technical expert to leader. Suddenly it all becomes about, it's like all about people at that point. You've got to really figure out how to influence up and down to your team and sideways with your peers and out with your suppliers. There's all kinds of people you've got to influence. And over the years, I watched people go through this. It wasn't always called executive coaching, but I always worked with people who had great, brilliant technical minds, but then often struggled with this transition of how do you influence others and bring them along with you. So in the book, I've described the stages of influence that leaders go through. And it's an exponential curve, Beck, because I think you can't just get a little bit better at influence. You've got to really break through several stages of it to multiply your influence as a leader.
Yeah. And then is your next book out now, or are you still writing your next book?
Not yet. I'm still writing it, Beck, and interviewing some people. It's called The Gentle Art of Leadership.
Yeah.
It's got some similar themes to it, and people are at the center of things. The essential thesis of the new book is you'll get best results out of people through treating them with dignity and respect. Sounds bleeding obvious, really, Beck, doesn't it? Like, of course, but yet in practice, it's often not seen that way, particularly through the crisis we've just been through. You know, those kinds of moments, often people just resort to survival, and command control style leadership comes to the fore. But I think post the COVID-19, it's going to require leaders who can empathise, leaders who are inclusive, leaders who know how to bring people along with them. Mm. And that's a gentle art.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean soft, I don't mean weak, but it's a gentle quality that brings out the best in people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think we've seen it in some leaders, haven't we, where they've been open and honest and raw on social media rather than it being a press conference. And I think that gentleness and that willingness to be human is really what you're talking about, I think.
Yes, that's right. Yes, there's a great example of someone I spoke to recently who will be in the book, a guy, Doug Conant, who was CEO of Campbell's Soup for 9 years. And in that time, Beck, he wrote 30,000 letters of appreciation to people for, you know, things that they did to help the company. And it just made a difference to get a handwritten letter from the global CEO. If you're in Sydney, Australia, in the Arnott's biscuit factory, it made a difference to get that kind of level of appreciation. A very simple example, but makes a profound difference.
Yeah, and I think when the ivory tower is being broken down now, and people want to see the leaders and know them as a person, as well as somebody to aspire to and look up to, but somebody that's also a little bit vulnerable and has problems.
That's a great point, actually, Beck. Yes, and really a lot of that's coming out to the fore in the people we're interviewing for the gentle art of leadership. They're not typically the kind of people who are saying, look at me, look at me. They're a bit humble. They're really kind of saying, well, it's actually my team, and I'm not really that smart. I've got really smart people around me. Well, I think you're pretty smart to surround yourself with smart people. That's a sign of a great leader. And you've got to be secure in your own skin to do that.
And
not
be able
threatened.
to give away the power as well, I think is a great skill for those gentle leaders, isn't it? Not to have to take all of the glory or have all of the power, but to let go.
Yes, it's a good point. And that Doug Carnett example, he was telling me that there's 41 people who worked for him who are now CEOs, and many, many more who are in the C-suite.
Yeah.
That really fostered great people, really had them develop and be as great as they could be.
Yeah,
and I think that's the challenge for post-COVID-19 is, whatever this future looks like after COVID-19, no one really actually knows, do they, what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be critical that we have leaders who can lead us through ambiguity, can lead us through uncertain times, and harness the power of people around them to help develop strategies and execute those strategies. I think if you develop your leadership capability, it's really going to future-proof you for this period beyond COVID-19. So I'm keen to get the book out as soon as possible. You know what it's like when you're trying to pull it together.
Yeah.
You've got a similar challenge too, right?
Yeah, still writing. So what's the kind of one thing that people can do in terms of getting better at being a gentle leader?
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, look, I think the starting point is reinvention. Often people talk about reinvention of, oh, well, I'll take on a new job title or a new industry or something. But the kind of reinvention I'm talking about is reinventing your inherent strength, the transferable skill that you've got. And a lot of the people I work with who've come from a technical background often have an inherent strength of great problem-solving ability. If they hadn't got into their IT or engineering, or maybe like some of your clients in quality management, they'd still be solving problems.
Mm.
They'd be in the supermarket queue solving the problem of how to get the queue working faster. So it's an inherent strength. But now that you're in leadership, we've got to think about, well, how do we reinvent that strength? How do you take it to another level? And the way you do that, I think, is say, well, there's a new kind of problem. The new problem is getting results out of people. That's essentially your job as a leader. So that's a pretty complex problem. You'll just when you think you've figured that out, someone new will come along, and everyone requires a different response. So that reinvention of that strength of problem solving, like now applying it to, well, how do I solve the people problem? How do I get the people to be really as great as they can be, develop them into be great leaders? That's a fabulous problem to be putting your mind to, rather than trying to solve all of the data or subject matter problems. You have people around you now who can do that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think what you said then about the data, a lot of the organizations I work with is that they get bogged down in the data. And I think, well, the data is actually just telling you the story of what's happening with the people. And you need to take the data and interpret that into what's the issue here, or what's the opportunity. Yeah.
Yes. I had a boss one time in my career, Becky said to me, look, it's all people, it's all relationships. There's no such thing as organisations, really. They're just a collection of people.
That's right.
And some of them are here today and they'll be somewhere else tomorrow. So it's really how you work with people and relationships in leadership that'll get you the results.
So how do people work with you, Brian? What do they do if they need a good executive coach, which you sound amazing?
Thank you. Well, there's my website. I think that's going to be in the show notes. It's donovanleadership.com. And I'm also offering for viewers and listeners of this interview, Beck, if they'd like a half an hour leadership diagnostic. We can go through where they want to be and where are they now, what's in the way, just to see then if it might be something I can do to help them. I have a program that I take people through, but that diagnostic could be a good starting point, I think, for people just to see where they're at and where they want to be.
There's no end to your generosity. Thank you. That's amazing. That's brilliant. And I think sometimes just that, having that diagnostic just gives you an awareness of where you are. You might assume where you are, but a diagnostic can give you a much clearer picture of what you need to do.
That's true, Beck, yeah. And I think it's the same as your work, that it's very personal. Chemistry needs to be right. So, you know, it gives us a chance to assess both ways. Do we think we could work together? And there's no obligation in the 30-minute chat, but it gives us a chance to, you know, just see, well, is that something that would help or not? And if so, yes. If not, it's fine.
Brilliant. Yeah. So if people just get in touch and mention that they saw you from the Lockdown Library.
Yes, I'll put my email address in the show notes.
Yeah.
And they can just send me an email and refer to the fabulous Beck and the interview we had, and I'll be happy to offer some 30-minute diagnostic.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
That's great, Beck. And look, I appreciate everything you're doing to elevate leadership and the work you did on the Lockdown Library and now these interviews. You're just fabulous how you're getting the word out there. I really appreciate it.
You wait till the movie comes out.
I look forward to it.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. It's been really good to talk to you. And yes, thank you so much for adding even more value to the Lockdown Library with your free diagnostics.
Thanks so much, Beck. Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.